Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the wild, dusty world of ancient Israel, where kings wear crowns heavier than their egos and prophets throw shade like nobody's business. Picture yourself standing on a sun-baked hill, the air thick with olive-scented breezes, watching a man named Ahab step up to rule a kingdom split like a bad breakup. It's the 9th century BCE, and you're in Samaria, the northern kingdom's capital, where the vibe is less royal banquet and more political dumpster fire. Ahab's about to take the throne, and trust me, you wouldn't survive a week in his sandals. Too much drama, not enough Wi-Fi. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment with your city and local time. I love knowing where you're chilling as we unravel this tale. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing in Samaria's bustling palace courtyard, the stones warm under your feet, as Ahab, son of Omri, strides forward to claim his crown. The crowd's buzzing, merchants haggling, priests muttering, and soldiers clanking in their bronze armor. You catch a whiff of roasted lamb from a nearby sacrifice, mixed with the sharp tang of desert dust. Ahab's young, maybe mid-30s, with a beard that screams, "I'm trying too hard to look wise." His eyes dart nervously, like he's already regretting signing up for this king gig. The northern kingdom of Israel, your home for this story, is a fractured mess. 10 tribes strong, but constantly bickering, surrounded by enemies like Aram and Moab, who are just waiting for a chance to pounce. Ahab's dad, Omri, was a tough act to follow. A warrior king who built Samaria into a fortress city. You can almost feel the weight of expectation on Ahab's shoulders, like he's carrying a backpack full of bricks labeled, "Don't screw this up." But here's the thing. Ahab's not just inheriting a throne, he's stepping into a religious tug-of-war. Israel's supposed to worship Yahweh, the God of their ancestors, but the people are flirting with other gods, Baal, Asherah, you name it. It's like they're scrolling through a spiritual dating app, swiping right on every deity. Ahab's coronation is a spectacle. Trumpets blaring, priests chanting, and a crown that looks like it could double as a paperweight. You notice his hands tremble as he swears the oaths. Historians still debate whether Ahab was nervous about ruling or just bad at public speaking. Either way, he's not exactly radiating confidence. A lesser-known tidbit: the crown he's wearing was likely forged with gold from Ophir, a mysterious land that archaeologists still can't pinpoint. Imagine flexing that kind of bling, only to realize half your kingdom thinks you're a poser. You wander through the crowd, catching snippets of gossip, heard Ahab's soft on the old ways. One trader whispers, clutching a clay tablet like it's his iPhone, "Bet he'll cozy up to the Phoenicians." Another says, spitting into the dust, and they're not wrong. Ahab's about to marry Jezebel, a Phoenician princess who's got a reputation sharper than a freshly honed dagger. You can already sense the storm brewing, like when your group chat starts arguing over pizza toppings, but with higher stakes and worse haircuts. Ahab's rule is kicking off in a city that's half construction site, half holy ground. Samaria's walls are still being built, and you can hear the clink of masons' tools mixing with the low hum of prayers. It's a place of ambition, where Ahab dreams of stability, maybe even glory. But you know how dreams go. Sometimes they're less inspirational vision and more fever-induced nightmare. As the ceremony wraps, you watch Ahab climb into a chariot that's basically the ancient equivalent of a Tesla, sleek, shiny, and screaming, "Look at me." He waves to the crowd, but you catch a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Is he ready for this? Spoiler, probably not. You'd probably fake a stomachache and call in sick if you were him. The day ends with a feast, tables groaning under platters of figs, bread, and wine that tastes like it was fermented in someone's sandal. You linger, savoring the scene, knowing this is just the start. Ahab's reign is about to get messy, and you're along for the ride, dusty sandals and all, ready to see what happens when a king picks a fight with prophets and gods. Let's keep going. You're back in Samaria, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the palace courtyard where the air hums with whispers and the faint clink of goblets. Ahab's been king for a hot minute, and already the city's gossip mill is churning faster than a camel on an energy drink. You're strolling through the bustling market, dodging carts piled high with pomegranates and linen, when you hear the name on everyone's lips, Jezebel. She's just arrived, Ahab's new wife, and let's just say she's not here to blend in like some wallflower at a middle school dance. This Phoenician princess strides into Samaria like she owns the place, her silk robes swishing with every step, her eyes sharp enough to cut through bronze. You can smell her perfume, myrrh, and something spicy, like she bottled the essence of trouble. Trust me, you'd need more than a prayer to keep up with her. Jezebel's the daughter of Ethbaal, king of Tyre, and her arrival is less a marriage and more a political power move. Ahab's trying to lock in an alliance with the Phoenicians, who control trade routes juicier than a soap opera plotline. You watch her step off a chariot decked out with gold inlays, her entourage trailing like backup dancers in a music video. The crowd parts, half in awe, half in fear, because Jezebel's got a vibe that says, mess with me, and you'll regret it. She's not just a queen, she's a cultural wrecking ball, bringing her gods, Baal and Asherah, right into Israel's backyard. You can feel the tension in the air, like when your Wi-Fi drops during a Netflix binge. The locals are torn. Some are intrigued by her exotic flair. Others clutch their Yahweh amulets like they're life preservers. Here's a weird fact most folks miss. Jezebel's name means something like unexalted or where is the prince in her native tongue, which is ironic considering she's about to exalt herself over everyone. Historians still debate whether her name was a deliberate jab by her enemies or just a quirky Phoenician tradition. Either way, it's a branding. Fail for a queen this fierce. You catch a glimpse of her and Ahab together, and it's clear who's running the show. He's all nervous smiles, like a guy who just realized his date's way out of his league. She's whispering something in his ear, and you'd bet your last shekel it's not about dinner plans. She's pushing for Baal worship, and Ahab's nodding along, probably because saying no to Jezebel is like telling a thunderstorm to chill out. You wander closer to the palace, where workers are already carving a shrine for Baal, the storm god Jezebel's obsessed with. The chisels ring out, and you smell fresh-cut cedar. But there's a sour undercurrent, disapproval from the priests of Yahweh lurking nearby. They're muttering about idolatry, their robes flapping like angry birds. You can't help but smirk. It's like watching your vegan cousin at a barbecue, judging everyone's life choices. Ahab's caught in the middle, trying to keep his new wife happy while not totally alienating his people. You'd probably fake a headache and hide in your tent. But Ahab's got no such luck. Jezebel's already redecorating the palace, swapping out traditional tapestries for ones with Phoenician motifs. Think gaudy lightning bolts and fertility symbols. It's the ancient equivalent of putting up neon signs in a cozy cafe. As night falls, you linger by a flickering oil lamp, watching Ahab and Jezebel host a banquet. The tables groan with roasted quail and figs, but the mood's tense, like a family reunion where someone brought up politics. Jezebel's charm is magnetic. She's toasting to Baal, her voice smooth as honey, while Ahab fidgets, glancing at the frowning elders. You can't shake the feeling that this marriage is a spark in a room full of dry tinder. Jezebel's not just here to be queen, she's here to reshape Israel, and Ahab's along for the ride, whether he likes it or not. You're starting to see the cracks in his rule, and you're wondering how long it'll be before the prophets of Yahweh clap back. For now, you slip away into the cool night, the stars above Samaria winking like they know what's coming. You're still in Samaria, the city's pulse quickening as the sun climbs high, baking the clay rooftops until they shimmer like a mirage. The air's thick with the scent of burning incense and the faint tang of sweat from laborers hauling stones for a new temple. You're weaving through the crowded streets where merchants hawk spices and kids chase stray goats when you notice a shift in the vibe. Ahab's palace looms ahead, but it's not the usual Yahweh-centric setup anymore. Jezebel's influence is spreading faster than a viral TikTok, and Baal worship is taking root like an invasive weed. You can feel the ground shifting under your feet, not literally, but in that gut-twisting way when you know things are about to get messy. Ahab's not just flirting with Baal, he's all in, building shrines like he's trying to win a pagan architecture award. You pause by a half-finished altar, its stones carved with lightning bolts. Baal's calling card. Workers are chanting as they hoist beams, and you catch a whiff of cedar and something sweeter, maybe myrrh from Jezebel's rituals. Ahab's there, overseeing the project, but he looks less like a king and more like a guy who got roped into his wife's DIY obsession. You'd probably fake a sprained ankle to dodge this kind of work, but Ahab's stuck. He's not just building a temple, he's signaling a cultural pivot, swapping Israel's ancestral faith for a Jezebel storm god. The locals are split. Some are curious, drawn to Baal's promise of rain and fertility, while others scowl, clutching their Torah scrolls like they're life rafts. It's like watching a city decide between sticking with vinyl or switching to Spotify. Here's a quirky fact. Baal's priests often dance themselves into a frenzy during rituals, sometimes cutting themselves to prove devotion. Sounds like a bad day at Coachella, right? Historians still debate whether Ahab fully bought into Baal's hype or was just keeping Jezebel happy. Either way, he's knee-deep in it now. You spot a group of Baal's priests, their robes garish with reds and golds, chanting in a language that sounds like it was invented to confuse you. They're waving censers, and the smoke curls up like it's trying to escape the drama. You can't help but smirk. It's like watching a cult try to go mainstream with a rebrand. But the tension's real. Yahweh's faithful are not amused, and you hear their whispers of blasphemy cutting through the market noise. You slip closer to the palace, where Ahab's holding court, surrounded by advisors who look like they'd rather be anywhere else. He's talking up Baal's power, but his voice wavers, like he's reading a script he doesn't quite believe. Jezebel's nearby, her presence commanding, her eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk picking out prey. You notice the old priests of Yahweh keeping their distance, their faces sour as week-old milk. One of them mutters about a coming reckoning, and you feel a chill, despite the midday heat. Ahab's not just changing religion, he's gambling with Israel's soul, and you're wondering if he's got the guts to see it through. It's like he's betting his entire 401k on a cryptocurrency called Baal coin. As evening settles, you find a quiet spot overlooking Samaria's walls, the city glowing under a crescent moon. Torches flicker around the new Baal temple, and you hear distant drums from a ritual. The air feels heavy, like it's holding its breath. Ahab's choice to embrace Baal isn't just a personal flex, it's a seismic shift, alienating half his kingdom and setting the stage for a showdown with the prophets of Yahweh. You're starting to see the cracks in his reign widen, like a phone screen after a bad drop. Remember that crown from his coronation, the one with the Ophir gold? It's probably feeling heavier now. You take a deep breath, the night air cool against your skin, and brace for what's next. A prophet's about to step into the ring, and you've got a front row seat. You're trudging along a dusty road outside Samaria, the sun glaring down like an overzealous spotlight, making your tunic stick to your skin. The air smells of parched earth and distant olive groves, but there's a new energy crackling, like static before a storm, words spreading fast. A prophet named Elijah's in town, and he's not here to swap pleasantries. You hear his name whispered in the market, like it's a code word for trouble. Elijah's a Tishbite, a wild card from the rugged hills of Gilead, and he's got a bone to pick with Ahab's Baal obsession. You're headed to the palace, where this showdown's about to kick off, and the vibe's tenser than a group project with a looming deadline. You'd probably call in sick to avoid this, but Elijah, he's walking straight into the lion's den. You reach the palace gates, where guards in bronze armor eye you warily, their spears glinting like overpriced toothpicks. Inside, Ahab's lounging on his throne, looking like he's trying to channel confident king, but landing closer to guy who forgot his lines. Jezebel's nearby, her gaze sharp enough to slice bread, and you can tell she's already clocked Elijah's arrival. The prophet storms in, no pomp, no entourage, just a wiry guy in a rough cloak, his beard wilder than a hedgehog on a bender. His voice booms, cutting through the court's murmurs like a foghorn. As the Lord lives, he says, pointing at Ahab, there'll be no rain until I say so. You feel the room freeze, like someone just unplugged the AC. Elijah's calling down a drought to challenge Baal, the so-called storm god. Bold move, like tweeting a diss at a CEO during a board meeting. Here's a strange tidbit. Elijah's cloak wasn't just fashion, it was a symbol of his prophetic authority, and some say he used it to part rivers later on. Talk about a multitasking accessory. Historians still debate whether Elijah's drought curse was a calculated jab at Baal's rainmaking rep, or just divine inspiration. Either way, it's a power play. You watch Ahab's face, a mix of shock and irritation, like he just got a parking ticket on his chariot. Jezebel's lips tighten, and you can almost hear her plotting revenge, her fingers drumming on her chair like she's texting a hit list, the courts buzzing, advisors whispering, some nodding at Elijah's audacity, others looking like they'd rather be auditing tax scrolls. You step outside to catch your breath, the air dry as a stale cracker. Elijah's already gone, vanishing, like he's got a prophet's version of an Uber waiting. The city feels different now, like it's bracing for impact. You notice people glancing at the sky, expecting clouds that won't come. Ahab's probably wishing he'd stayed in bed, but he's got to deal with this drought threat while keeping Jezebel's Bell fan club happy. It's like juggling flaming torches while riding a unicycle. Good luck, buddy. You can't help but chuckle at the thought of Ahab trying to explain this to his Phoenician in-laws. The drought's not just a weather forecast, it's a divine middle finger to Ahab's new religion, and you're wondering how long he'll last before cracking. As night falls, you find a spot by a city well, the water level already looking sad. Torches flicker in the distance, and you hear snippets of panic. Farmers worrying about crops, priests praying harder than ever. Elijah's challenge has lit a fuse, and Samaria's sitting on a powder keg. You remember that Baal temple from last time, with its gaudy lightning bolts. It's looking like a bad investment now. The stars above are sharp, no clouds in sight, and you feel the weight of what's coming. Elijah's thrown down the gauntlet, and Ahab's got to pick it up or lose face. You pull your cloak tighter, the night air biting, and head back toward the city, ready to see how this prophet-king cage match plays out. You're trudging through the outskirts of Samaria, the ground beneath your sandals cracked and dry, like a loaf of bread left out too long. The sun's relentless, scorching the fields until they look like a bad abstract painting, all browns and yellows. Elijah's drought curse is no longer just a bold threat. It's real, and you can feel it in the air, thick with dust that sticks to your throat like regret. The olive trees droop, their leaves curling like they're begging for mercy, and the streams you pass are barely trickling, more mud than water. Samaria's people are starting to panic, their faces drawn as they haul dwindling water jars. You're headed toward the city center, where Ahab's grappling with a kingdom that's drying up faster than a group chat after a bad joke. You'd probably fake a vacation to escape this mess. But Ahab's stuck, ruling a parched land. You reach the marketplace, usually buzzing, but now eerily quiet, save for the creak of carts and the low murmurs of desperate bartering. The smell of stale sweat and wilting herbs hangs heavy, and you notice folks eyeing the sky, hoping for clouds that refuse to show. Ahab's been king long enough to know this drought is tanking his approval ratings. He's out inspecting the city's wells, his fancy robes dusted with grit, looking less like a king and more like a guy who lost a bet. You overhear a farmer muttering that the drought's a sign, Baal's failing, and Yahweh's flexing. It's like the universe just posted a bad Yelp review of Ahab's religious pivot. Historians still debate whether Ahab blamed Elijah outright or secretly doubted Jezebel's storm god. Either way, he's sweating more than usual, and it's not just the heat. Here's a weird fact. During droughts like this, ancient Israelites sometimes resorted to eating locusts, which were considered kosher and surprisingly protein-packed. Imagine chowing down on crunchy bug snacks because your crops are toast. Talk about a low-budget survival hack. You spot Ahab conferring with his advisors, their scrolls looking as wilted as the fields. He's sending out scouts to find water, but you can tell he's rattled, his hands fidgeting, like he's scrolling through bad news on X. Jezebel's nowhere in sight, probably back at the palace, burning incense to Baal, hoping for a miraculous weather app update. You can't help but smirk. Her god's supposed to deliver rain, but it's drier than a stand-up comic's punchline out here. You wander toward a city gate where a small crowd's gathered around a storyteller, spinning tales of past droughts. His voice is low, almost ASMR-worthy, but the fear in his eyes is real. He mentions how Elijah's curse has hit harder than anyone expected, drying up not just water, but hope. You feel the weight of it too, your own throat parched as you sip from a nearly empty water skin. Ahab's rule is starting to crack like the ground beneath you, and you're wondering if he's regretting that Baal temple from a few sections back. You know, the one with the tacky lightning bolts? It's like he built a theme park for a god who's ghosting him. The people are whispering about Elijah, wondering where he's hiding, and you catch a rumor that he's off in the wilderness, maybe living like a hermit with better beard game than Ahab. As the sun dips, painting the sky a mocking shade of orange, you find a shady spot under a dying fig tree. The air's cooling, but it's still heavy, like the whole kingdom's holding its breath. Ahab's out there, probably pacing the palace, trying to figure out how to spin this drought to his advantage. You hear distant prayers, some to Yahweh, some to Baal, and it's like the city's stuck in a spiritual tug-of-war. The drought's not just a weather problem, it's a test of Ahab's leadership, and he's flunking hard. You pull your cloak around you, the night air sharp, and brace for what's next. Elijah's out there somewhere, and you've got a feeling he's not done shaking things up. Let's see how Ahab handles the heat, literally and figuratively. You're standing on the slopes of Mount Carmel, the wind whipping through your cloak, carrying the salty tang of the nearby sea and the faint char of burnt offerings. The sun hangs low, casting jagged shadows over a crowd that's gathered like it's the ancient equivalent of a pay-per-view event. You've trekked here from Samaria, your sandals caked with dust, because word's out, Elijah's back, and he's throwing down the ultimate challenge to Ahab's Baal priests. The mountain's a natural amphitheater, rocks jutting out like bleachers, and you can feel the buzz. Half festival, half cage match. Ahab's here, looking like he'd rather be binge-watching scrolls than facing this showdown, while Jezebel's absence screams louder than any war cry. You'd probably fake a stomach cramp to skip this drama, but you're here, heart-pounding, as Elijah steps up to face 450 prophets of Baal. The scene's electric. Elijah, all wild hair and fiercer eyes, stands on a rocky outcrop, his cloak flapping like a superhero's cape. He's calling out Ahab and the Baal crew, his voice cutting through the crowd like a knife through warm pita. How long will you waver between two opinions? He demands, pointing at the people. If Yahweh's God, follow him. If Baal, follow him. You hear murmurs ripple through the crowd. Some nod, others clutch their Baal amulets like they're holding onto a bad stock. Ahab's off to the side, his crown glinting, but his face pale, like he just realized he's the undercard in a divine wrestling match. The challenge is simple: 2 altars, 2 bulls, no fire. Baal's prophets go first, praying for their god to light the sacrifice. Spoiler, it's about to be a long day. Here's a strange tidbit. Baal's priests often used hidden fire-starting tricks in other cultures, like flint or pitch, to fake miracles. Think of it as ancient stage magic. David Copperfield with worse robes. Historians still debate whether Elijah knew about these tricks and set up this public test to expose them. Clever, right? You watch the Baal prophets start their ritual, dancing and chanting like they're auditioning for a talent show nobody asked for. Their voices grow hoarse, their movements frantic, and you can't help but smirk. It's like watching a TikTok dance trend flop hard. Hours pass, and their altar stays cold, no matter how much they shout or slash themselves with knives. You wince at the blood, but the crowd's eating it up, whispering bets on whether Baal's just napping or totally AWOL. You shift your weight, the rocks digging into your soles, and glance at Ahab. He's fidgeting, probably wishing he'd stuck with Yahweh's fan club instead of Jezebel's Baal merch. Elijah's calm, almost smug, as he steps forward, rebuilding his altar with 12 stones, 1 for each tribe of Israel. He's not just praying, he's putting on a masterclass in shade, dousing the altar with water until it's practically a swimming pool. You catch a whiff of wet wood and damp earth, the crowd hushing as Elijah prays, his voice low but steady, like an ASMR track for divine intervention. The stakes are high. If Yahweh doesn't show, Elijah's toast and Ahab's off the hook. But you've got a feeling, like when you know the plot twist is coming in a movie. As the sun dips lower, painting the sky in fiery pinks, you lean forward, the tension thick enough to choke on. The Baal prophets are slumped, exhausted, their altar as lively as a wet sock. Elijah's moment is here, and you can't look away. Remember that drought from last time, the one turning Samaria into a dust bowl? It's all led to this, a divine face-off on a mountain stage. Ahab's watching, his hands clenched, and you wonder if he's regretting that Baal temple with the tacky lightning bolts. The crowd's buzzing, the air crackling, and you brace yourself. Something big's about to go down, and you're right in the middle of it. Mount Carmel's rocky slopes, your front row seat. You're still perched on Mount Carmel, the air sharp with anticipation and the faint tang of salt water from the sea below. The sun's sinking, bathing the rocky slopes in a golden glow as the crowd around you holds its breath. Elijah's altar, drenched to the point of absurdity, stands ready, the bull sacrifice glistening under the fading light. You can smell the damp wood and the nervous sweat of the onlookers, their eyes locked on Elijah, who's calmer than a yoga instructor at a silent retreat. Ahab's off to the side, his crown tilted, like he's one bad decision away from a midlife crisis. The Baal prophets, exhausted from their hours-long chant-a-thon, slump by their silent altar, looking like they just ran a marathon in flip-flops. You'd probably be sneaking off for a nap by now, but you're glued to this divine drama, heart racing as Elijah steps up to pray. Elijah raises his hands, his voice steady, but carrying a weight that makes your skin prickle. "Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel," he says, "show them you're the real deal. No theatrics, no dancing, just a man betting everything on his faith. You barely blink before a bolt of fire streaks from the sky, like someone flipped on a cosmic blowtorch. It hits the altar with a roar, consuming the bull, the wood, the stones, even the water in the trench. You flinch, the heat grazing your face, the smell of charred meat and scorched earth filling the air. The crowd gasps, then erupts, falling to their knees, shouting, "Yahweh is God." It's like the whole mountain just got a 5-star review from the heavens. Ahab's frozen, his face a mix of awe and dread, like he just realized his Baal subscription's been canceled. Here's a weird fact. The fire didn't just burn, it obliterated the stones, which some scholars say might have been limestone, prone to cracking under intense heat. Imagine a divine bonfire so hot it turns rocks to ash. Talk about overkill. Historians still debate whether this was a natural phenomenon, like lightning or pure miracle. Either way, it's a mic drop moment for Elijah. You glance at the Baal prophets, who look like they're regretting every life choice that led them here. Some are muttering, others fleeing, probably wishing they'd called in sick. You can't help but smirk. It's like watching a rival team fumble the Super Bowl in overtime. Elijah's not done though. He's rallying the crowd, his voice sharp now, urging them to seize the Baal prophets. You wince as the mob moves, the scene turning grim. But it's a brutal time, and Elijah's playing hardball. You shift your gaze to Ahab, who's still standing there, looking like he's mentally drafting an apology tweet. He's got to be questioning everything. Jezebel's gods, his choices, maybe even that gaudy Baal temple with the lightning bolts from a few sections back. The crowd's chanting grows louder, a mix of triumph and fear, and you feel the weight of the moment. This isn't just a win for Elijah, it's a public humiliation for Ahab's regime. You're wondering how he'll spin this to Jezebel, who's probably back in Samaria, clueless about the divine smackdown. It's like trying to explain to your boss why the project you hyped for months just crashed and burned. You catch a whiff of smoke lingering in the air, a reminder of Yahweh's flex, and your heart's still pounding from the spectacle. As dusk settles, the mountain feels alive, the crowd's energy buzzing like static. You find a rocky ledge to lean against, the cool stone a relief against your sunburned skin. Elijah's already moving, his cloak billowing as he prepares for what's next. Ahab's climbing into his chariot, his face unreadable, but you can tell he's rattled. The fire's changed everything, and you're betting he's dreading the ride back to Samaria. Remember that drought, the one turning Israel into a dust bowl? It's still gripping the land, but something's shifting. You hear a distant rumble, not thunder yet, but a hint of what's coming. You pull your cloak tighter, the night air sharp, and brace for the next act. Elijah's got Ahab on the ropes, and you're right here for it. You're still on Mount Carmel, the air cooling as night creeps over the rocky slopes, carrying the faint scent of charred earth from Elijah's fiery victory. The crowd's buzzing, their cheers for Yahweh fading into nervous murmurs as they process the divine roast of Baal's prophets. You can still smell the acrid smoke from the altar, now a blackened ruin, and your heart's still racing from that heavenly flamethrower moment. Ahab's in his chariot, looking like he just got dumped via text, his crown glinting dully under the starlight. Elijah's not done, though. He's scanning the horizon, his cloak flapping like it's got a mind of its own. You're leaning against a boulder, the stone cold against your back, when you hear him tell his servant to check the sea for clouds. The drought's been choking Israel for years, and you're wondering if this is the moment it breaks. You'd probably be Googling weather forecast by now, but here, it's all on Elijah. You squint toward the Mediterranean, where the sky's a deep indigo. No clouds in sight. Elijah's praying, kneeling on the ground like he's having a one-on-one with the divine. His servant scurries back and forth, reporting nothing but clear skies. And you can't help but smirk. It's like waiting for a delivery that's stuck in out for delivery. Limbo. Ahab's watching, his hands gripping the chariot's edge, probably hoping for a miracle to save face after Baal's epic flop. The crowd's thinning, some heading home, others lingering like they're waiting for an encore. Then, on the seventh check, the servant shouts about a cloud the size of a man's hand. You strain your eyes and spot it, a tiny puff on the horizon, like a cotton ball lost at sea. Elijah's face lights up, and he's suddenly all action, telling Ahab to hightail it to Jezreel before the rain hits. It's like the prophet just got a push notification from the heavens. Here's a quirky fact. Ancient Israelites measured rain clouds by hand size, not exactly Doppler radar, but it worked for them. Historians still debate whether this sudden shift was a natural weather change or a divine flex. Either way, it's a game changer. You hear a low rumble, not just thunder, but the promise of water, and the air feels heavier, like it's pregnant with rain. Ahab's chariot bolts, wheels kicking up dust as he races toward Jezreel, probably praying he doesn't get stuck in a flash flood. You'd be running too, if your sandals weren't half worn out from this trek. The first raindrops fall, fat and cold, splattering on your face like nature's confetti. The crowd scatters, some cheering, others cursing as they slip on wet rocks. It's like a music festival when the skies open. Chaos, but the good kind. You find shelter under a scraggly tree, the leaves barely holding off the downpour. The rain's coming harder now, drumming the ground, turning the dust to mud that clings to your feet like bad decisions. You can't stop grinning, though. After years of drought, this feels like winning the lottery. Remember that parched Samaria from a couple of sections back, with its sad wells and wilting figs? This rain's a lifeline, but it's also Elijah's victory lap. Ahab's gotta be rattled, speeding through the storm, knowing Yahweh just outplayed Baal on the biggest stage. You wonder what Jezebel will say when she hears her storm. God got benched. It's like her favorite influencer just got canceled. and Ahab's the one stuck explaining it. As the rain soaks your cloak, you watch the mountain empty, the last stragglers vanishing into the deluge. Elijah's running too, not in a chariot, but on foot, somehow keeping pace with Ahab's ride, like he's got divine Red Bull in his veins. The air smells clean now, of wet earth and hope. But you know this isn't the end. Ahab's heading back to Jezreel, where Jezebel's waiting, probably sharpening her knives. Metaphorically, for now. You pull your hood up, the rain a steady hum, and start the long walk down the mountain. The drought's broken, but the real. Storm's brewing in the palace, and you've got a front row seat for what's next. Let's see how Ahab handles the fallout. You're slogging through the muddy streets of Jezreel, the rain from Mount Carmel still dripping from your cloak, leaving a trail of soggy footprints. The air's thick with the scent of wet stone and blooming jasmine, a stark contrast to the parched Samaria you left behind. Ahab's chariot has just rolled into the palace courtyard, splattered with mud, like it's fresh from an off-road rally. You can hear the clatter of hooves and the creak of wheels as he dismounts, his face a mix of exhaustion and dread, like he's about to walk into a performance review with a very angry boss. That boss? Jezebel, who's waiting inside, probably sipping wine and plotting like she's the villain in a soap opera. You slip closer to the palace, the torchlight flickering through the downpour. Because word's spreading, Jezebel's heard about the Mount Carmel fiasco, and she's not happy. You'd probably fake a fever to avoid this confrontation, but Ahab's got no choice but to face the music. You ease into the palace shadows, the walls cool and damp against your back, catching snippets of Ahab's report to Jezebel. His voice is low, stumbling over words, as he describes Elijah's fire from heaven stunt and the Baal prophet's epic fail. You can almost see Jezebel's eyes narrow, her gold bangles clinking as she leans forward, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Elijah did what? She hisses, and you feel the room's temperature drop, despite the humid air. She swears a vow to kill Elijah by tomorrow, her words dripping with venom, like she's ordering a hit via ancient text message. Ahab's silent, probably wishing he could vanish like one of those disappearing Snapchat stories. You can't help but smirk. It's like watching a couple argue over who forgot to pay the Wi-Fi bill, except with higher stakes and worse haircuts. Here's a strange tidbit. Jezebel's vow wasn't just talk. She had a network of informants and enforcers, making her the ancient equivalent of a mob boss with a Pinterest board for Baal. Historians still debate whether her rage was purely religious zeal or a power move to protect her influence. Either way, she's not messing around. You catch a glimpse of her pacing, her silk robes swishing, as she dictates a message to Elijah, promising his head on a platter. The messenger scurries off, looking like he'd rather be herding goats in a thunderstorm. You're wondering how Elijah, fresh off his Mount Carmel win, will handle this death threat. It's like he just aced a final exam, only to find out the professor's out for revenge. You step outside, the rain slowing to a drizzle, the air heavy with the scent of mud and crushed herbs. Jezreel's streets are quiet now, the locals huddling indoors, whispering about the prophet who called down fire and rain. You hear a rumor that Elijah's fled south, maybe to Beersheba, his cloak probably still damp from the storm. Ahab's back in the palace, likely drowning his stress in wine, caught between his wife's fury and his kingdom's unrest. Remember that gaudy Baal temple from way back with its lightning bolt decor? It's looking like a bad investment now, and Jezebel's doubling down like someone who sank their savings into a failing startup. You chuckle at the thought of Ahab trying to mediate between his queen and a prophet who's basically God's hype man. As night deepens, you find a dry spot under a stone arch, the city's torches casting a warm glow through the mist. The rains left everything glistening, but the tension's thicker than ever. Jezebel's vow has set a new game in motion, and Elijah's on the run, his victory soured by a queen who doesn't play nice. Ahab's stuck in the middle, probably regretting every choice that led to this moment. You feel the weight of it all, your cloak still damp, your sandals squelching with every step. The stars peek through the clouds, faint but steady, and you wonder how Elijah will dodge Jezebel's wrath. The palace looms behind you, a shadow of power and trouble, and you brace for what's next. Ahab's reign is wobbling, and you're right here to see how it shakes out. You're wandering the sun-scorched outskirts of Jezreel, the air thick with the scent of ripe grapes and dusty earth. The recent rain a fading memory under the relentless sun. The city's quieter now, but there's a new buzz, something about Ahab and a vineyard that's got tongues wagging faster than a viral ex-post. You're headed toward a lush patch of green, Naboth's vineyard, where the vines are heavy with fruit, a rare jewel in this drought-ravaged land. You can almost taste the sweet tang of grapes just looking at it. Ahab's there, pacing the edge of the plot, his crown glinting, but his face sour, like he just got a low battery warning on his favorite chariot. You're close enough to hear him muttering, his eyes fixed on the vineyard, like it's the last slice of pizza at a party. You'd probably just order takeout to avoid this drama, but Ahab's got his heart set on this land, and it's about to spark a tragedy. You linger by a stone wall, the heat radiating off it like a skillet, as Ahab approaches Naboth, the vineyard's owner. Naboth's a sturdy guy, his hands calloused from years of tending vines, and he's not budging when Ahab offers to buy or trade for the land. "This is my family's inheritance," Naboth says, his voice firm, like he's defending his Wi-Fi password. Ahab's face falls. He wants the vineyard for a vegetable garden of all things, which is like trading a vintage car for a bicycle. You can't help but smirk. It's peak Ahab, dreaming of carrots, while his kingdom's still reeling from Mount Carmel's divine roast. Naboth walks away, leaving Ahab sulking like a kid who didn't get invited to the cool table. You sense trouble brewing, the kind that smells like Jezebel's perfume, myrrh and menace. Here's a strange fact. Vineyards like Naboth's were so sacred in Israel that selling them was almost taboo, tied to tribal identity and divine law. Historians still debate whether Ahab's request was just greedy or a clueless power flex. Either way, it's a bad look. You follow Ahab back to the palace, where he flops onto his couch, refusing food and moping, like he's auditioning for a sad puppy commercial. Jezebel sweeps in, her robes swishing, her eyes rolling so hard you can practically hear them. "What's with the pity party?" she snaps, and Ahab spills the vineyard drama. You lean closer, the air heavy with incense, as Jezebel's lips curl into a smile that's more predator than queen. She's got a plan, and it's not exactly a group hug. She forges letters in Ahab's name, ordering the city elders to frame Naboth for blasphemy, a move so dirty it'd make a reality TV villain's blush. You slip out to the city square, where the elders are setting up a sham trial. The air's tense, filled with the murmur of a crowd and the clink of wine jars as they feast under false pretenses. Two shady witnesses think ancient equivalents of sketchy Yelp reviewers accuse Naboth of cursing God and king. You wince as the crowd turns, stones in hand, and Naboth's dragged outside the city. The thud of rocks echoes, and you look away, the dusty air stinging your eyes. Jezebel's plan worked. Naboth's dead, and Ahab gets his vineyard. You're stunned, like you just watched someone steal a parking spot and then key the car. Ahab heads to claim his prize, oblivious to the moral dumpster fire he's just ignited. As dusk falls, you stand by the vineyard, now eerily quiet, the vines swaying in the breeze like they're mourning. You can still hear the crowd's shouts fading in the distance, and the weight of Naboth's death hangs heavy. Remember that Baal temple with the tacky lightning bolts from way back? This feels worse, like Ahab's traded his soul for a plot of dirt. Jezebel's in the palace, probably toasting her victory, while Ahab's blissfully unaware that prophets like Elijah don't let this stuff slide. You pull your cloak tight, the night air sharp with the scent of grapes and guilt, and brace for what's next. Ahab's about to get a divine wake-up call, and you're right here to see it unfold. You're trudging through the dusty paths of Jezreel, the air heavy with the sweet rot of overripe grapes from Naboth's vineyard. Now, Ahab's ill-gotten prize. The sun's high, baking the ground until it cracks like overcooked flatbread, and you can still smell the faint tang of blood in the air, a grim reminder of Naboth's stoning. You are headed toward the vineyard, where Ahab's strutting around like he just won a Black Friday deal, inspecting his new land with a smug grin. The vines sway lazily, unaware of the injustice they're rooted in. You're wondering how he sleeps at night. But then again, with Jezebel as a pillow talk partner, maybe he doesn't. You'd probably be stress-eating hummus to cope. But Ahab's got bigger problems, like a certain prophet who's about to crash his victory lap. You hear a rustle in the distance, and there's Elijah, his cloak dusty, but his eyes blazing, ready to drop some divine truth bombs. You duck behind a gnarled vine, the leaves scratching your arms, as Elijah strides into the vineyard like he owns it. His voice cuts through the midday heat, sharp as a freshly honed dagger. Thus says the Lord, have you murdered and also taken possession? Ahab freezes, his face paling, like he just saw his chariot's repair bill. You can almost hear his heart sink, like a stone dropped in a dry well. Elijah's not holding back, accusing Ahab of Naboth's murder and promising a curse. Dogs will lick Ahab's blood, and Jezebel's fate won't be any prettier. The air's thick with tension, and you catch a whiff of sweat and fear. Mostly Ahab's. It's like watching a reality show. Contestant realize the cameras caught their worst moment. You can't help but smirk. Elijah's serving justice with a side of shade, and Ahab's got no comeback. Here's a strange tidbit. Elijah's curse about dogs was no random jab. Dogs were seen as unclean scavengers in ancient Israel, so the prophecy was as much an insult as a threat. Historians still debate whether Elijah's words were a spontaneous outburst or a calculated move to rally Yahweh's faithful. Either way, it hits Ahab like a spiritual slap. You watch him stumble back, his fancy robes dragging in the dirt. As Elijah lays out the divine verdict, Ahab's house will fall, just like Naboth's life. The prophet's voice is low now, almost ASMR calming, but every word lands like a hammer. You're half expecting Ahab to bolt, but he just stands there, looking like a kid who broke mom's favorite vase. Jezebel's not here, probably scheming back at the palace, but you bet she'd have a few choice words for Elijah's audacity. You shift your stance, the vineyard soil sticking to your sandals, and catch the crowd gathering at the edge of the plot. Locals are whispering, some shocked, others nodding like they saw this coming. The news of Naboth's death spread fast, and now Elijah's public shaming of Ahab is the hottest gossip since Mount Carmel's fire show. You're wondering if Ahab's regretting that vegetable garden dream. You know, the one that cost a man's life. It's like he traded his reputation for a patch of carrots nobody asked for. The sun's dipping now, casting long shadows across the vines, and you feel the weight of Elijah's words settling over Jezreel. Ahab's starting to look less like a king and more like a guy who's in way over his head, caught between a vengeful queen and a prophet with a direct line to God. As evening creeps in, you find a quiet spot by a low wall, the air cooling, but still heavy with the scent of grapes and dust. Ahab's slinking back to the palace, his shoulders slumped, probably dreading the moment he has to tell Jezebel about this divine diss track. You hear a distant owl hoot, adding to the eerie vibe, and you're betting Elijah's already vanished into the wilderness, his cloak billowing like a low-budget superhero. Remember that Baal temple with the tacky lightning bolts from way back? It's a distant memory now. But this vineyard mess feels like its karmic sequel. You pull your cloak tighter, the night air sharp, and brace for what's next. Ahab's been called out, and you're curious to see if he'll double down or crack under the pressure. Let's keep walking this messy path. You're back in Jezreel, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and the faint musk of livestock as twilight paints the sky in bruised purples. The city's quieter now, the sting of Elijah's vineyard showdown still lingering like a bad aftertaste. You're slipping through the palace gates, where torches flicker, casting jittery shadows on the stone walls. Ahab's inside, not on his throne, but slumped in a corner, draped in sackcloth that scratches worse than a cheap Halloween costume. He's fasting, his face gaunt, looking like he just binged a true crime podcast about his own life. You can smell the stale bread he's refused to eat, and the air's thick with the weight of his guilt. After Elijah's curse, Ahab's trying to make nice with Yahweh, and you're wondering if it's genuine or just damage control. You'd probably be stress scrolling X to avoid this vibe, but Ahab's stuck facing his sins. You linger near a pillar, the cool stone grounding you as you watch Ahab mutter prayers, his voice barely above a whisper, like he's afraid God's got him on mute. The sackcloth's a bold choice, Kings don't usually rock the penitent hobo look, but it's a public signal. He's sorry for the Naboth mess. You catch a whiff of myrrh from a nearby altar, a faint nod to Jezebel's influence, but she's nowhere in sight, probably fuming in her chambers over Ahab's sudden piety, the courts buzzing with whispers, servants and advisors tiptoeing around, unsure if this is a spiritual glow-up or a nervous breakdown. You can't help but smirk. It's like watching a CEO apologize on live TV after a PR disaster, complete with crocodile tears and bad lighting. Ahab's repentance feels real, but you're betting he's still got one eye on the throne. Here's a quirky fact. Sackcloth in ancient Israel was often made from goat hair, itchy enough to make fasting feel like a double punishment. Historians still debate whether Ahab's remorse was heartfelt or just a strategic grovel to dodge Elijah's curse. Either way, it's a rare moment of humility for a guy who's been dodging accountability like it's a tax audit. You notice a priest nearby, nodding approvingly, but his eyes are skeptical, like he's seen too many royal apologies to buy this one. Ahab's not eating, not sleeping, just pacing and praying, his crown stashed somewhere, probably collecting dust next to his dignity. You're wondering if this is enough to soften Yahweh's judgment, or if that vineyard deal, the one with the literal blood on Ahab's hands, is too big a stain to wash out. You step outside, the night air sharp with the scent of olive oil lamps burning in the distance. Jezreel's streets are hushed, but you hear murmurs of Ahab's fast spreading. Some folks calling it noble, others snickering that it's too little, too late. You're thinking back to that Baal temple with the tacky lightning bolts from way back, and now this vineyard fiasco. It's like Ahab's collecting bad decisions like trading cards. The stars are out, bright against the dark, and you feel the weight of Ahab's attempt to hit reset. Elijah's curse is still hanging over him, and you're curious if this repentance will stick, or if Jezebel will yank him back to Team Baal. It's like he's trying to swipe left on his entire reign, but fate's not that forgiving. As you lean against a city wall, the stone still warm from the day's heat, you hear a distant dog bark, a grim echo of Elijah's prophecy about Ahab's blood. The palace looms behind you, its torchlight flickering like it's unsure of itself. Ahab's in there, wrestling with his conscience, or at least pretending to, while the kingdom watches, waiting for the next act. You pull your cloak tighter, the night air biting, and wonder how long this humbled king routine will last. Remember that fire on Mount Carmel? The one that roasted Baal's prophets? Ahab's trying to avoid a similar fate, but you've got a feeling the heavens aren't done with him yet. Let's keep moving. See if this sackcloth stunt changes the game or just delays the inevitable. You're weaving through the bustling streets of Samaria, the air thick with the scent of roasted barley and the faint tang of metal from a nearby blacksmith. The sun's climbing, glinting off the city's half-built walls, and you're headed toward the palace, where Ahab's shaking off his sackcloth phase like it was a bad fashion trend. He's back in king mode, his crown polished, but his eyes still haunted, like he's expecting Elijah to pop up with another curse. Words out that Ahab's plotting a military alliance with Judah's king, Jehoshaphat, to take on Aram at Ramoth Gilead. The marketplace is abuzz with talk of war, and you can feel the tension, like when your group chat blows up over a risky plan. You'd probably ghost the whole thing and binge some scrolls. But Ahab's diving in, hoping a victory will polish his tarnished rep. You slip into the palace courtyard, where the air's heavy with dust and the clatter of chariots being prepped. Ahab's hosting Jehoshaphat, the southern king, who's all pious vibes and practical armor, a stark contrast to Ahab's flashy Phoenician style. They're planning to reclaim Ramoth-Gilead, a border city Aram's been hogging, like a kid who won't share their candy. Ahab's gathered a posse of prophets, 400 of them to be exact, who are chanting victory like they're hyping a sports team. "Go up," they shout, waving staffs, their robes flapping like they're auditioning for a low-budget prophecy commercial. You smell incense burning, probably to keep the divine vibes positive. But something feels off, like when your GPS says turn left into a lake. You're wondering if these prophets are legit, or just yes men paid in royal wine. Here's a weird fact. Some of these prophets might have doubled as court entertainers, spinning predictions to keep kings happy, like ancient motivational speakers with worse haircuts. Historians still debate whether Ahab handpicked these guys to drown out Elijah's doom and gloom vibe. Either way, they're laying it on thick. You notice Jehoshaphat's not buying it, his brow furrowed, like he's double-checking the fine print. He asks for a prophet of Yahweh, and Ahab rolls his eyes, mentioning Micaiah, a guy he hates because he never sugarcoats the truth. You can't help but chuckle. It's like Ahab's annoyed his Yelp reviews keep coming back 1 star. Micaiah's summoned, and when he arrives, his vibe is pure Elijah light. No nonsense, with a glare that could curdle milk. He sarcastically echoes the other prophets at first, then drops a bombshell. Ahab's headed for disaster at Ramoth-Gilead. You lean closer, the courtyard's noise fading, as Micaiah describes a vision of God's court, where a lying spirit tricks Ahab's prophets into pushing for war. It's wild, like overhearing a cosmic prank call, and Ahab's not amused, ordering Micaiah locked up like he's canceling a bad podcast. You catch a whiff of tension, sweat, incense, and the faint leather of soldier's gear as Ahab and Jehoshaphat finalize their plans. Ahab's stubborn, doubling down like he's betting his kingdom on a shaky stock tip. You're thinking back to that vineyard mess, the one with Naboth's blood on Ahab's hands. You know, the one Elijah roasted him for. This war feels like another bad call, and you're wondering if Ahab's learned anything from his sackcloth stunt. As the sun dips, casting long shadows over the chariots, you find a spot by a city gate, the air cooling but still buzzing with war prep. Soldiers are sharpening spears, their banter nervous, like they know Micaiah's warning might hold water. Ahab's riding high on his prophet's hype, but you see cracks in his confidence, like a phone screen after a bad drop. Jezebel's probably in the palace, cheering this war on, her Baal temple dreams fading, but her ambition still sharp. You pull your cloak tighter, the evening chill creeping in, and brace for what's next. Ahab's marching to Ramoth-Gilead, ignoring the one prophet who didn't clap for him. You've got a bad feeling about this, but you're right here to see how it plays out. You're trudging along a rocky path toward Ramoth-Gilead, the air thick with the dust kicked up by Ahab's army, the scent of sweat and leather mixing with the faint tang of pine from nearby hills, the sun's brutal, glinting off bronze shields and making you squint as you follow the clatter of chariots and the shouts of soldiers. Ahab's leading the charge alongside Jehoshaphat, their alliance a shaky bet to retake this border city from Aram. You can feel the tension, like the moment before a group project presentation when nobody's sure who's got the slides. Ahab's in his chariot, but he swapped his royal bling for plain armor, probably spooked by Micaiah's prophecy of doom from last time. You'd be hiding in the back row with a fake cough, but Ahab's out front, banking on his 400 yes men, prophets over the one guy who told him, "This war's a bad idea." You reach the battlefield, a sprawling plain where Aram's forces are lined up, their spears bristling like a porcupine with an attitude. The air's heavy with the metallic tang of blood and the low hum of war drums. Ahab's plan is sneaky. He's disguised himself as a regular soldier, letting Jehoshaphat draw the enemy's focus in his kingly gear. It's like using your friend as a decoy while you sneak out of a bad party. You weave through the ranks, your sandals crunching on gravel, catching glimpses of Ahab's chariot weaving through the chaos. Arrows fly, shields clang, and you duck as a stray spear whizzes past, close enough to ruffle your cloak. You can't help but smirk. Ahab's playing hide and seek in a war zone, but your betting fate's got his GPS coordinates. Here's a strange tidbit. Ancient battles like this sometimes hinged on targeting kings, so Ahab's disguise wasn't just paranoia, it was standard royal survival tactics. Historians still debate whether Ahab's move was cowardice or strategy. Either way, it's not looking good. You spot an Aramean archer, probably some random grunt, knocking an arrow at a venture, as the old stories put it. It's a wild shot, but it finds Ahab, piercing his armor like a hot knife through hummus. He gasps, blood seeping through, and you smell the sharp iron of it as he slumps in his chariot. The driver's yelling, trying to get him out, but Ahab's stubborn, ordering the fight to go on. It's like he's live streaming his own downfall, too proud to tap out. You stick close, the battle's roar deafening, as Ahab's chariot rolls slowly, his blood pooling on the floorboards. Soldiers are shouting, some fleeing, others pressing the attack. But the vibe's shifting, Aram's gaining ground. You're wondering if Ahab's regretting ignoring Micaiah, the prophet he locked up for telling the truth. It's like dismissing a weather app warning and getting soaked in a storm. The sun's dipping now, painting the sky red, and you hear a dog barking in the distance, a creepy nod to Elijah's curse about Ahab's blood. You're thinking back to that vineyard, the one he stole from Naboth. You know, the one that started this whole divine hit list. This feels like the bill coming due, and Ahab's got no change left. As night falls, the battle winds down, and you find a quiet spot on a hill overlooking the chaos. Ahab's chariot is parked, his body still inside, the blood drying in the dust. Soldiers are retreating, their torches flickering like fireflies, and you hear whispers that the king's dead. Jehoshaphat's made it out, but Ahab's gamble failed spectacularly. You pull your cloak tight, the air sharp with the chill of evening and the weight of a king's fall. The stars are out, cold and unyielding, and you're left with the echo of Micaiah's warning ringing in your ears. Ahab's reign is crumbling, and you're right here to see the final act. Let's head back to Samaria and see what's left of his legacy. You're back in Samaria, the city draped in a heavy quiet, the air thick with the scent of dust and fading torch smoke. The news of Ahab's death at Ramoth-Gilead has spread like wildfire, and you're walking through streets where whispers outnumber footsteps. The sun's low, casting long shadows over the palace, where Ahab's chariot sits, its floorboards stained dark with his blood. You can still smell the faint iron tang, mingling with the earthier notes of the city's olive groves. Servants are scrubbing the chariot, their movements slow, like they're washing away more than just blood. Jezebel's inside, her presence looming like a storm cloud, while the people mourn, or pretend to, for a king who left a legacy messier than a spilled wine jug. You'd probably be binge-watching something to escape this gloom, but you're here, feeling the weight of Ahab's end and wondering what it means for Israel. You slip closer to the palace courtyard, where elders and priests gather, their faces drawn, muttering about succession and curses. Ahab's son, Ahaziah, is next in line, but you hear his name spoken with less hope than resignation, like picking a substitute teacher nobody trusts. You catch a glimpse of the chariot again, now eerily clean, but dogs are sniffing around it, their tongues lapping at the ground where Ahab's blood spilled. It's a chilling echo of Elijah's prophecy from that vineyard showdown. You know, the one about dogs licking Ahab's blood. You shiver despite the warm evening as the scene plays out like a grim prophecy tick-tock. The crowd's murmuring grows, some saying Ahab's greed and Baal obsession doomed him, others blaming Jezebel's influence. You can't help but smirk. It's like everyone's got an opinion, but nobody's got a solution. Here's a strange tidbit. Ahab's death fulfilled Elijah's curse so precisely that some ancient scribes thought it was poetic justice, not just coincidence. Historians still debate whether Ahab's fall was divine retribution or just bad luck in battle. Either way, it's a brutal end. You wander toward the city's edge, where the Baal temple, with those tacky lightning bolts from way back stands, now half abandoned, its altars cold. The priests of Yahweh are reclaiming ground, their prayers rising like smoke. But Jezebel's still a force, her shadow stretching over Samaria. You're wondering if she's plotting revenge or just mourning in her own fierce way. It's like she's the last player, standing in a game everyone else quit. Ahab's reign, from his coronation to that stolen vineyard to his fatal arrow, feels like a cautionary tale about chasing the wrong gods and the wrong fights. You find a quiet spot overlooking Samaria, the city's lights flickering like they're unsure of the future. The air's cooler now, carrying the scent of dew and distant cedar, and you feel the story settling, heavy but final. Ahab's life was a whirlwind. Crowns, prophets, fire, rain, and blood, and you've walked every step of it. His ambition, fueled by Jezebel's fire and his own wavering heart, built a kingdom that cracked under its own weight. You're thinking back to that first day in Samaria, when Ahab's crown felt like a promise, not a burden. Now, it's just a memory, Like a deleted post nobody screenshots, the stars above are steady, watching over a kingdom that's lost its king, but not its troubles. As the night deepens, your eyelids grow heavy, the soft hum of crickets blending with the city's fading murmurs. You pull your cloak closer, the air gentle now, like a whisper urging you to rest. Ahab's story is done, his chariot empty, his legacy a mix of power and ruin. You imagine the fields beyond Samaria, where rain from Mount Carmel's miracle might coax new life from the earth. Let the dust settle, let the vines grow, let the kingdom find its way. You're drifting now, the stars blurring into soft light, the world fading like a dream. Sleep calls, soft and sure, wrapping you in its quiet embrace. Close your eyes, let the story go, and rest easy under the ancient sky. End of script. Sweet dreams.
you. you.